The book of Samuel. If My People, Bible Reading, Part 99. Samuel is usually introduced in most Bibles as two. When you read it, you realize it's one scroll that was written, and why it was separated into, I don't know. So we'll go ahead and present it as Samuel 1 and Samuel 2 so we don't put the whole world into mass confusion here. All right, let's get in the word. 1st and 2nd Samuel are counted as one book in the Hebrew Bible in the reading, the way it contextually reads. And although Samuel 1 begins with the life of Samuel, it's more about David. This whole thing is about Samuel and David and pressing towards David. And King Saul comes in here, but as you'll see as the story goes, as the father wants you to understand, um, they they uh, they ask for prophets, and the people who call themselves people of Yahweh uh, call themselves. They call themselves. I'm not saying they are the people of Yahweh. Just like today, the synagogue of Satan, the churches of Satan call themselves Christians, call themselves Orthodox Judaism, but they don't even pay attention to what they're supposed to be doing. So many good people are in the Christian churches. Many people are in the institutional churches and the ones, you hear this, especially I heard this a lot. So and so left the church and you never hear from them again. And you think, oh, poor person who left the Christian church. They just don't believe in Jesus. No, they're the ones who do. And they realized watching the unorthodox behavior of the Christians' doctrines and traditions of men and false doctrines intentionally put in themselves to make themselves a more attractive business in a town where there's 14 churches and 14 bars. Every bar has to be different from the next, and every church has to be different from the next. Did you ever wonder about that? So if that gives you a good idea why we wrote this and put this together now in video form, we have it audio for the blind, and we have it. We've created a Bible that you can read, and now we're doing it by video because so many people who call themselves Christians, good Christians, those who hear and obey the Torah, which is, don't get crazy on me. Torah means instructions from Yeshua and the Father. Wow, the arguments that people have today. This is all about David's anointed and his being anointed, and Samuel. And they didn't want Samuel, and they didn't want the prophets. And they, as Yeshua says, they killed all the prophets, so they tried to, anyways. And many of them they did. And even the prophets who tried to straighten up the churches in the last 2,000 years, they killed them, burned them at the stake, cut them in pieces, martyred them, created martyrdom for them. But kings don't work. It just doesn't work. Now we don't have kings. We have presidents and prime ministers and so forth, and they don't work out either. And we have packed courts. What do we want to call it? Court judges, Supreme Court judges, wearing black robes, all copied after pagan behavior. That black robe does not represent something that when you put on the robe, you act a certain way. Really? A robe? That's the life we live in. The life is just full of nonsense, and we're going through Samuel 1 and 2 because of the nonsense that you're going to see in there that still continues today. So these two books, this scroll of Samuel, is very important to know and read. So you Christians who only read the New Testament, wrong. You should be here, and those following me, you are a shepherd. You know what to do. So, First Samuel, as we're going to go in, divides up into this: youth and judgeship of Samuel, the anointing and rejection of Saul as king of Israel, and the parallel lives of Saul and David to up into the death of Saul. That's why they separated it into Saul too. So then Saul's out of the picture. So we are in chapter 2, verse 19. We start with that. Verse 18. But Samuel was ministering before Yahweh, a boy wearing a linen ephod. Now, he was just a young man. So the priests during that time were a family of priests from Eli, and him and his sons were not very good people, not very good at all. Each year, his mother made him a little robe and took it to him, and she went up with her husband to offer the annual sacrifice. So he was being trained and brought up to be that of a priest, just like excuse me, just like during Yeshua's time, uh, Johann or John the Baptist, his parents, his mom and dad, very pious people, and his dad was a priest in the line that he should have been a priest, but he wasn't. And John was, by the time John became a man, his dad was out of the picture. His mom and dad were gone because they were old. So he most probably, we don't know this, but the way the writings go and the way the Qumran writings go, of the Essenes, he was probably brought up in an Essenic community. So my comment is, this illustrates two important matters of love and obedience. Here we see Samuel growing up in a bad environment with Eli and his sons in the temple, but he is still righteous, he's still obedient, and also the love of a mother who did not get to be with her son, but remembered him yearly with a robe. That's wonderful. They did not celebrate birthdays in those days, so this is the example of a yearly celebration she had with her son. Birthdays just don't mean anything in those days. Of course, they do today, and if you try to stop that kind of behavior, you remember people in their death more than in their birth. You should. The love of a mother is precious. That's what I wrote. Isn't it? I said, the love of a mother is precious. Isn't it? Samuel goes through, very good man. He follows Yahweh in many ways. Chapter 8, verse 18. When that day comes, you will cry out for relief from the king you have chosen, and Yahweh will not answer you in that day. Uh-oh. Verse 19. But the people refused to listen to Samuel. No, they said, we want a king. Samuel was telling them what Adonai is trying to tell them all. So now they're going through a prophet. So the people don't listen, just like they didn't want to listen to the mountain when I want to hear from the Father. I want to hear from the Father. Father comes down, roar, big noises, and the Father is talking to them directly in the first Exodus. And then we don't want to hear from the Father. And here we go again. Now they're putting another wall, another hedge up to separate them from the Father. Now we're putting up prophets. They don't listen to prophets. They just didn't listen to them right there in verse 18 and 19. And he's just the beginning of it. All the prophets come after that. The writings are fantastic. Did the people in those days generally listen to the prophets? No. So now they're going to listen to a king. The answer is going to be for the first next 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 books that follow this. No. But that's what they're wanting. So, I say, today we have moved much further along the road of socialism and paganism with taxes over 40 to 50%, even higher. This is what you get when you get a king. This is what you get when you get a parliament. This is what you get when you get people who want to rule you and then charge you for ruling because they think you're too stupid to rule and take care of things as a family. We have multiple methods of worshiping gods of this world now, just as they did then, and are heading towards a one-world government at the speed of light lately. All of this started in the time of Samuel. To know the future is to be prepared for it, so hear and obey. Truth is stranger than fiction. We will soon live in a one-world government, and Yeshua will be at the head of the priests and the government. So yeah, there's going to be a one-world government. It's not the one that the people currently in charge think. All under the Melchizedek model found in the book of Genesis. All right, so yeah, it's coming. And yeah, it's not going to be what the people who are in charge of the world, or the ones who think they're in charge of the world, know anything about. We are now in the book, chapter 11, and I'll start at 17. Samuel summoned the people of Israel to Yahweh at Mizpah and said to them, "This is what Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel, says. I brought Israel up out of Egypt, and I delivered you from the power of Egypt and all the kingdoms that oppressed you. But now you've rejected your Elohim who saved you out of all the calamities and distresses, and you have said, 'No, set a king over us.'" They're still arguing for it. "So now present yourselves before Yahweh by your tribes and your clans." Elohim walked, comment, Elohim walked with Adam and Eve in the garden, and yet they rejected his word. And so Elohim gave them the written Torah and to teach them. And they rejected this. So Elohim gave them strict laws. The added-in laws is given by Moses in the form of Levitical laws, and they rejected that. And so Elohim gave them the prophets, and they rejected that. And so the people now ask for kings to rule over them, just like the pagan nations do. That's where that comes from. And they will what? Yes, reject them also. So we will see that Elohim keeps his promise to fill the earth with people of the faith of Abraham, and there was even a blood oath in the promise. That's back in Genesis with Abraham. So it's still pointing right back to the book of Genesis again, saying, hey, Abraham, I'm going to give you all these things. Now, the details coming out that the world's going to be full of violence and hate. And so that's kind of important, isn't it? Important thing to know now. This is a book meant to be read from the beginning to an end. So Yahweh doesn't lay out every single thing that's ever going to happen in a few sentences, or in a text, or in an iPad, or on your phone as you're walking down the streets and you're sitting there staring at a piece of glass, not seeing anything. Oh, what a world we live in. Okay. Anyway, and yet we now will find that it will take the death of Yeshua's son, Yeshua, on that tree to redeem his people. His people. Once again, the Father loved the whole world, but the whole world has a choice, and he wants them to have choice to come to him. He doesn't want to force anything down anybody's throat. He wants his people to love him. We're still in chapter 11, pretty good chapter, verse 13. So, but Paul said, got to get this right, but Saul said, "No one shall be put to death today, for this day Yahweh has rescued Israel." Back in verse 12, it said, the people then said to Samuel, "Who is it that asked, shall Saul reign over us? Bring these men to us, and we will put them to death." Our comment, to even try to understand how Lucifer, it's back to him again, the bearer of light, could become Hasatan, the adversary of Yahweh, is, I mean, what am I saying? I'm saying, I've said it, just keep reading, and prove me wrong if you want to play that game. Go ahead, all you want. It just makes so much sense. This earth has been around a long time, and it was in orderly fashion. If you look at the striations of the earth, if you really take a look at it, it's been here a long, long time. And then there's some chaos on occasions. Who is the author of chaos? There you go. Okay, so, and once again, for you certain people that believe in the 6th day, absolute, positively, and no other understanding, it's got to be this or that. I don't have a problem with the 6th day. I believe that only the Father could fix what was around for billions of years and fix it in 6 24-hour days. Yeah, I do believe that. I don't have a problem with it at all. So, anyway, we should carefully study the life of Saul. Saul was given great authority and was close to Yahweh, and yet, through the years, pride entered in, and he separated from Yahweh to the point where Saul did not even realize the Ruach was not even in him anymore. Suicide is not an escape from life. See you at the next one.